So I just saw Morbius. If I can be completely honest with you guys for a second, I thought this movie was going to be dog shit. I want to preface by saying that I don't know what the current critical reception is to this movie. I only have an idea of how Twitter feels about it. Because try as I might, I can't escape impressions from people that get to see it before I do. And just, man, the word of mouth from them was awful. But I gotta say, I thought it was okay. Yeah. I thought Morbius was alright. I don't know if it's about to be a hot take, but it really wasn't the disaster that I was told it was going to be. Not by a fucking mile. If there is one word I could sum this movie up with, I'd say basic. It's just a basic-ass comic book film. If you've been watching Marvel movies for the past 20 years, I'd say this is as low quality as you should expect. Or at least demand. Like, this was just a very standard superhero character flick. In fact, I'll go on to say that I liked this movie a lot more than The Amazing Spider-Man 2 and Venom 1. Probably, at least for me, because I know this one's a little bit of an unpopular opinion. I don't really like the Amazing Spider-Man movies at all. I'd say I enjoyed this more than TASM 1. And it's no disrespect to Mark Webb or anything, this whole movie, I kind of sat back wondering, like, why is this upsetting so many people? As far as I could tell, it was just an alright movie. It wasn't anything great. I won't even act like it was anything good. But it was alright. It was pretty decent. And in fact, I'd say it's very decent. I was expecting it to be much worse. Because I've seen some shitty superhero movies. I've seen some shittier Marvel movies that barely qualify as superhero movies. This really is not even close. Does it feel like it was crafted by a studio? Sure. Yeah, I'll give you all that. Like, it is as elementary as you can imagine. But I gotta say, it really wasn't bad. Not at all. It's not to say it doesn't have flaws. Like, I definitely have my issues with it, which I'll go over in just a second, but it's totally watchable. It's an easy watch. It's not the train wreck that Twitter is making it out to be. So with that out of the way, I was even prepared to, have this gag film, because I was anticipating this movie to be so shitty. I was fully expecting to film myself at the very end of the movie, recording myself, getting up out of my seat as soon as it ends, and walking to the concessions to demand a ticket for the Batman. That was the gag that I had planned in case this was terrible. I didn't film that because I didn't want to see another movie after this. I was satisfied with the product that I got. And I know that's not much praise, but just if you're familiar with how this movie was discussed online, it's a huge compliment, actually, because, yeah, nobody had faith in this movie. I don't think the studio had faith in this. I don't think any of the actors involved had faith in this. But somehow it turned out all right. So I guess way to go, Sony, as someone that hasn't really liked the Spider-Man movies post-Raimi that don't exist in the MCU, including Venom. I haven't seen Venom 2. I gotta say, this is pretty decent. So at risk of sounding like a broken record at this point, I am just gonna jump right into the things that I enjoyed about this movie. And wouldn't you know it, the first thing that comes to mind about Morbius is Morbius. I did like Jared Leto's portrayal of this character, and I won't act like I'm an expert on Morbius. I really only have the 4Kids cartoon to go off of, but I tend to root for these kind of redemption roles, you know? Chris Evans from Human Torch to Captain America, Ryan Reynolds from Wade Wilson to Green Lantern, and then to Deadpool proper. And also Ben Affleck from Daredevil to Batfleck, and I really like rooting for these kind of roles. Jared Leto did not get a good deal with Joker. The studio definitely shafted him there. And I was really hopeful for him being a good Morbius, and thankfully I can report he does a good job. He is Hollywood's vamp kid, so he's a good pick for Morbius. And I thought his design was pretty cool. His red eyes, his fangs. I will say, the bloodsucker hands are missed. That was just always something I really liked about Morbius, but I can live without that, I guess. I mean, I'll have to, but if nobody sees this movie, they might reboot it and try again with the bloodsucker hands, and that'll fucking put $1 billion at the box office. But, no, I mean, Jared Leto's performance, it ranges from a little uninspired or unmotivated to really good, actually. I was surprised. I thought he was kind of gonna just phone it in for this one, but he did all right. The scene when he becomes Morbius does a really good job of showing him act as an anti-hero. You'll see just this feral animal that's just brutally killing people, even though I'm pretty sure he slashes somebody's jugular and you see no blood come out. If you're a sadist like I am, that might irk you a bit. But that scene does a really good job of showing him act as an anti-hero, because despite just having done these horrible things, when he comes to and he regains his humanity, he sends out a distress call to help the one survivor, knowing that it could put him at risk, and he flees after that, while also trying to destroy the footage and, you know, not leave a trace behind. Still, there was a little detail that I liked. I would say up until he hones his abilities after he becomes Morbius, well, most of them, I'd say up until right after he hones all of his abilities except for one, the movie sails all right. You know, I won't act like it's smooth sailing. It's very, very fast-paced. It's definitely too fast-paced, but it was all right. Morbius does have pretty basic motivation, but I'd say it's serviceable for the plot. It goes where it needs to go, and it doesn't dawdle while it does it, and that's really all I could ask for. The music, sometimes I could get down with, other times I thought it was a little odd. But it is what it is. Except for one moment, I'd say the movie was shot pretty well. The moment I'm, most remembering, though, reminded me a lot of The Last Airbender, where it was like this reverse shot scene the whole time, and just the camera was right on their faces, the two actors that were in it. And that could have been pulled back easily. Like, very easily. But that's about it. Otherwise, the movie was actually shot very well. I even thought the villain was kind of fun. At first, I wasn't really into him. I thought, his whole motivation was, again, just basic and bland. But the more time we spent with him, the more you got to see his personality shine. I won't act like he's a compelling villain or anything like that, but I think he gets the job done. But yeah, overall, I just thought it was pretty fun, pretty entertaining, pretty easy to watch. That's the big thing. Like, it's very much that Marvel movie that you show your grandkids to spend time with them. That's the best way that I can kind of describe this movie-going experience. If you keep your expectations low enough, I think you'll be surprised. I think a lot of people just fresh off of No Way Home were expecting just this grand multiverse entry, and it's really not. Is it disposable? Sure. Yeah, but I'd much rather watch this than any of the other Sony Spider-Verse movies, not including the Home trilogy, as it's fan-dubbed. With that said, I think now would be a good time to transition to some of my issues with the movie, and right off the bat, it starts off with this situation that's very unclear. You're watching it and you're thinking to yourself, like, wow, are they really starting the movie here? because it felt like this scene had taken place later in the movie that just was put at the beginning in editing. And that's kind of the fake out it's going for. Not really. It's still a little unclear as to how certain things happen, like how the bats from this cave get into Morbius's lab and all that. But if you can look past that, yeah, it's really not an issue. It's over before you know it. I wasn't really sold on Martine, Morbius's lab assistant and romantic interest. She was clearly just there to give some kind of ground motivation to Morbius. And I just thought the actress gave a pretty bland performance. It just seems like this movie's very easy to make fun of and nitpick. There's a lot of moments where, you know, for example, Morbius is shown on the Daily Bugle to be this most wanted guy, and here he is just having a date with his girlfriend out in public. There's a lot of that shit going on. And if that's going to pull you out of the movie, yeah, you're not going to like this movie at all. I can definitely attest to the logic just being non-existent in this movie. Like, yes, let's splice, you know, this fucking serum together using this super predatory bat that has these carnivorous instincts and nothing bad could happen, or just other bits where logic is just out the window. The reason why I'm so forgiving about it here is because it doesn't feel like this movie was gutted to shreds like Venom 1 was. You know, because a lot of the same schlock carries over and is consistent with these two movies. It just feels like Morbius was a more complete product upon its release. And I know that's a very backhanded compliment, but I mean it, and I'm sticking by it. I don't feel bad talking about this because clearly the director doesn't give a fuck. He wants to spoil the whole movie, like in a Q&A. The joke that you saw in the trailer, the I am Venom, that was very cringe and definitely out of place. It felt like a studio-forced rewrite and shit like that. But what was even worse about it was followed up by, like, a genuinely good one-liner from Leto. I was like, had you just had that one, that would have been a pretty solid moment, but I don't know, it was undercut a little bit, I'd say. And also, just the action was not good to look at whatsoever. Like, it was very illegible, especially the finale, where it was like the final battle between the hero, or the anti-hero and the villain. It was very illegible. It's just debris cluttering up the screen, and all these mist effects between Morbius. It was not pleasant to look at all. Clearly CGI and very over-reliant on it. Understandable, but it just didn't look good, in my opinion. As far as, like, that grim lighting to hide the shitty CGI fights go, I'd say this is easier on the eyes than Venom 1 and Wonder Woman 84, but it's still not good, and I hope we get to a point where they stop trying to fool us with this shit, because it's just not working, in my opinion. I did not plan on discussing spoilers for this video just because I don't think many people are going to watch this movie, and there's really not much to spoil, but there is something I would like to talk about, and it is the mid-credits scene. There's two of them, but they play into each other. I consider it just one. If you would like to not hear about the mid-credits scene, click here on the time for the video to skip that. That's your last warning, though, that I'm going to spoil really the only thing there is to spoil about it. And if you... truthfully, it already has been spoiled by the fucking director. But just in case you haven't seen it and you are interested, I'm going to give you that chance to skip. But here we go. Marvel really is on a shitty streak with their fucking post-credit scenes for Phase 4. I don't understand why they are doing these plot-important bullshit teases, you know? In the fucking end and mid-credits. That's very bad storytelling, first of all. It's very cheap and lazy, and I'm tired of that shit. No Way Home kind of got a pass because the movie itself was really good. Black Widow, fucking Shang-Chi, and now Morbius have these terrible post-credit scenes. This one suffers from just it making no sense, because I'll even retract in my No Way Home review. I had said something about why it made no sense for these to be there, and the issue was on me for not seeing Venom 2. I still haven't seen it. But the mid-credit scene for this movie really doesn't make any sense in my opinion. Vulture is back. Michael Keaton, for some reason, he is now in the Venomverse. Or the Andrew Garfield, Sony-verse. I guess Doctor Strange's spell sends him to another universe and, other villains, maybe, while it erases their memories. It really wasn't that clear, but what makes no sense about it is the fact that he still has all his fucking technology in a world without the Avengers. That's the whole reason why he got that shit, man. Was because he was scrounging up shit in New York after the Chitauri invasion. Here, he's just flying in on a glider, just fresh from the MCU. In a separate universe where he wouldn't have access to it. So it's clearly that was a reshoot. Because Spider-Man is not mentioned at all in this movie. There were posters and trailers and everything, and maybe there's a lot cut from this movie that I'm not fully in the know-how about to recognize. But this was definitely just added in at the last minute, if you ask me. Morbius hears fucking Michael Keaton talk about Spider-Man, and it's hey, I recognize that, or at least that's what it seemed to me. And just, it threw it off entirely. You had an okay thing going, but this mid-credit scene was terrible, and I think they're handling this multiverse shit poorly, if you ask me. But what do I know? So anyways, if you're joining us back, I had my little say about the mid-credit scenes. Otherwise, I am ready to review this thing. I thought it was a lot better than it was going to be. I think what I'm going to say is an unpopular opinion. I do think I like this more than Venom 1 and The Amazing Spider-Man 2. The Amazing Spider-Man 1, I might give the edge to, even just personally. But just, I am not digging these Sony side Spider-Verse films. That's a tongue twister right there. I just wish they'd be better, Granted, this was the one that I was if this one's really bad, if this one's like Venom 1 again, or TASM 2, I'm just out. Thankfully, this one was competent for the most part. It was coherent, and it was fast. It moved along pretty well. I didn't feel like it was moving at a choppy pace where just stuff was missing that I would have liked to have seen. So, with all that said, my rating should really be no surprise at this point, but I am going to give it 1 star. I was fully expecting a shit rating, so this is really good. It's really good news. Sony fans, Marvel fans, I am very surprised that Morbius earned a star. I don't really have anything else to say. I hope that this is really going to help Jared Leto's case for getting his true characterization of the Joker out there in the air cut. Who knows? I don't know how well this is going to do at the box office. If it does really terribly, I don't think we'll see Jared Leto again in the MCU. I really don't. I know they are pushing that, but money talks. So if you are interested in seeing this movie, definitely go check it out. If you've been put off by the poor word of mouth, I would say see it for yourself. Make up your own opinion about it. And, just don't let the Twitter talk dissuade you from being excited about a movie. With that said, I am going to wrap this short review up to a close. So thank you so much for watching. As always, I'll catch you next time. I try to review every comic book film that comes out. I still haven't seen Venom 2. I just couldn't bring myself to do it. I really couldn't. I will someday, but not for more than $5 to own it. So As always, I'll see you next time. Take care.